What's up, everybody? It's Connor and Joshua with Chamber One Tactical. We kind of have the two most popular handguns current on the market right now. We have the CZ P10C Ported and the Canik MC9 Prime. So we're going to go over the main features, what sets these guns apart, and give you guys as much information as we can so that you will know which one's best for you. So let's get into it. All right, so the first thing we like starting off with is price point, because that is one of the main components in when you go to purchase an item. So for the Canik MC9 Prime, you're looking at around, depending on where and when you get it, around $550 to $600. The most common is what we've seen is around $600, but I know you can every once in a while catch a deal at around $550. But for the CZ P10C, these Joshua actually paid too much because he just really wanted it. But you can actually find these right now on Palmetto State for $4.99 consistently. So
and these just came out.
Yeah. So pretty cheap. Not cheap, but inexpensive. So really cool to see a gun come out for $4.99 that has a port that's actually reliable. But again, we're gonna run through kind of what sets these guns apart and why we would choose what we choose. So if you want to start with the actual slides and the breakdown of the optic cuts and everything like that.
Absolutely. So starting off with the Canik Prime, so it does have some slide serrations up front that we like to see. One thing to note is the actual recoil spring, it seems to be a little bit tighter than the CZ. So for someone that maybe has a little bit weaker of a grip, that's just something about these Canik MC9s. They seem to be really tight, but it's not too bad because there's some good serrations on there. And then of course you have some in the back as well. I'll let you talk about the CZ because it's on your side.
Yeah, so the CZ, Joshua has mentioned it in other videos that we've done, but the actual serrations that they have on here are very similar to previous models that they've had. The only difference is they did deepen the cut a little bit, so there's a little bit deeper cut on there. And then they also gave you some on the top, which is actually really nice. I love when companies put them on the top where the middle of your hand can actually grab onto the slide. And it's a very sleek looking design. Same with the Canik. It's neither one is a bad design. I actually do somewhat prefer the design on the Canik, mainly because when your hand wraps over, they perfectly beveled the slide to where when your hand goes over, it touches all parts of in between your pointer finger and your thumb. It just is very easy to grab onto. And obviously it's a little thinner, and that is another thing that kind of separates them is your CZ. For your optic cut, you are going to have to buy plates, and the cheapest I've seen plates is around $50. So you're already going to have $50 into it, but it's also going to be more in line with like the Trijicon RMR size optics, whereas the Canik MC9 Prime is going to be using the RMSC size optics, so a little bit more micro red dots than the standard red dots that you would normally see on these types of guns. So you are looking at a different optic setup when you're looking at these guns, and obviously your CZ is going to be a little thicker than the Canik MC9
You
Prime.
can buy plates for the CZ to take these optics, which, like, for instance, the Sealy that we have kind of sticks out a little bit on the Canik, where it might actually sit flush with that. So it all depends on the plate that you buy, and maybe that's why they don't include it, because you might make that decision that you want to go with that smaller size optic.
Right.
But it is going to be an additional $50.
Yeah. But I think they both did a good job on the actual slide serrations and the finishes that they do. You pretty much can't go wrong there. The main thing being that CZ needs to change having plates. It'd be nice if they could do something similar to, like, say, the Echelon, where you can put any optic on there.
Or any plate in the box at all.
Just give us one.
Would have helped out a little bit.
Yep. But moving on to the actual frames of the gun, because that is another, kind of difference that they have. With the CZ, you have very similar texturing to, well, the same texturing that you have on any of the other CZ P10Cs. The side panels are going to be a little less aggressive, made that way so that when you're carrying it, it's not picking your shirt and it's not rubbing the skin raw wherever the gun is placed if you're doing inside the waistband carry. And then the front and the back strap are going to be very textured, and you'll notice when you pick up a CZ, if you give it a good squeeze and you let it go, the imprint is going to be in your hand from the actual texture, which for me and Joshua is not a bad thing. We like to see very aggressive texturing in the right spots. So CZ did a really good job. This gun is ambi. It just doesn't have the mag release where it's usable at the same time. You'd have to flip it. But it does have the slide stop, slide release on both sides.
Same thing with the Prime as well. You can swap it, but it's ambi everywhere else, but you just have to swap that out. But while we're talking about the frame on this, it is nice they have that full rail right there for, I guess, modularity for different flashlights and all that kind of thing. But when we talk about the grip, when it's in your hand, I really like it. It's very stippled. The back strap is very aggressive, and the front's very aggressive. But when we actually carry this gun, one thing that I've noticed is depending on the material of my shirt, it almost sticks to this almost like Velcro. Maybe even kind of the material that you're wearing right now, not so much a t-shirt like I'm wearing, but when it's, we carry appendix, so when it's in your appendix, it's kind of just picking at your shirt, and it kind of morphs around and folds to the actual grip of the gun, and then you're printing. So it's just something to note there. But I do like the whole ergonomics of it. It fits the hand really well. So does the CZ.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of strange about that gun because for a small gun, it actually in the hand almost feels fatter than the CZ, because the CZ's just, you're able to get so high up on the grip itself that you feel like your hand is just inside the gun. It just locks in.
It's like it's further in.
Yeah, when you hold the Canik, you really don't feel like you're locked in on the gun as much. It just feels like you're holding on for the ride, where the CZ feels like you're in the gun, you're ready to go. So there's a little difference there. Also, obviously, the bore axis being a little bit better on the CZ.
Get real high up on there.
You are going to be able to get a little higher up, whereas the Canik, it's going to be sitting over your hand a little bit more, so it's going to have just that little bit more leverage over your hand.
And the actual total slide height is going to be a little bit lower on the CZ. So you have a little bit less slide mass coming back on there.
But they both do a great job on their frames. They're obviously very different, but it's going to be hard to beat the texturing of the CZ P10Cs. But I do think Canik, to their defense, they did a good job from their original texturing that they've put on some of their other handguns. This is definitely an upgrade for them.
As far as texture goes, I don't think one wins over the other. But I think as far as the way that it fits in your hand and the pointability, I think would go to the CZ.
Different applications too, like you said with the texturing. You definitely don't want something where, if you're wearing a shirt like this and you can see it printed a little bit more because it's sticking to the gun. It's not exactly, perfect situation.
You want to talk about sights?
We can talk about sights. This is actually what... Oh, I'm sorry. Did you want to go ahead and start?
Yeah. Well,
go ahead.
So this Prime, they actually did something that we really like. For one, it's a different color front sight than the rear. Me and Connor like that. So it's I guess a bright orange up front, and then it's blacked out rear. But they all have tritium-filled sights in the very center of them. So when it's dark outside, you're able to see all your sights. So thank you for that, Canik Prime.
If you could say there was a perfect setup sights for me, those would be the sights right there.
And these are good carry. They're a little bit bigger of sights, so they're good carry sights, and then of course the CZ.
I don't even think I think all around, because they put that orange circle up there.
Yeah.
It's an all-around good setup.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You know, you go buy a CZ Shadow, they're going to have a blacked-out rear, and they're going to have a bright front sight. So they did a really good job with their sight setup, and I think that's what made this gun so great when we got it, because we didn't have an optic on it at first, was just the sight setup. They did such a good job on it. Now, the CZ, this is where they're lacking a little bit. CZ, they did upgrade from other sights that they've had, so they did kind of channel or cut off some of the material where they used to have it very blocked off, so it funnels the sights to where you really pay attention to that front sight, and then they put some grooves on the rear sight so that the actual glare is, you know, lowered. The only thing is they continue to put their little glow-in-the-dark, whatever that stuff is, instead of putting tritium in there. So for a carry gun, these are not really ideal because, and we've mentioned it before, when you have this gun holstered, this part of the gun is covered. Every once in a while, you're going to get some light on your rear sights just because it's at the higher point. So if you go pull this gun out, your front sight is going to be very dim and your back sights are going to be very bright, and it's going to be very hard for you to be able to see your front sight, which is very important.
A lot of people say that. I don't understand why I don't hear more people say that or how they don't notice that in testing. But it's very aggravating only being able to see your rear sights and not be able to see your front sight in a low light setting.
And the reason that we know this isn't just us saying it. We carry CZ-P10Ss
a lot,
all the time. So this is something we have noticed time and time again. Yeah, this is Joshua's new carry gun.
Yeah.
Time and time again, we've noticed that. And it's to the point where you want to go and change out your front sight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or your whole sight setup.
One thing that I will say to the CZ is in daytime shooting.
Yeah.
When we back up and we want to shoot, the way that they have these sights so tight together allows you to be very accurate with your shots.
Yeah,
so that's why when I was talking about these being very much so like for carry, they're a little bit bigger. They're made for those quicker shots. You can still make quick shots with these, you know, in the daytime too. I'm not saying you can't. But what I do appreciate is the ability to back it up and still be very accurate with the sight setup that they have on the CZ.
Yeah, in fact,
just give me some tritium.
You took this gun out to, 110 yards, making hits with it with
half
the target.
Yeah.
So, very accurate gun, but kind of getting to one of the biggest and hardest differences between the guns is the trigger. Because I mean, the CZ trigger, you guys have heard it before from us. We love the trigger on a CZ P10C, P10S, P10 series. They just do an excellent job because it's so repeatable. You have just a very little bit of take up right there. Once you get to the wall, and it's a brick wall. Once you get to the wall, it's a dead stop, and then the only movement from that point is the break of the trigger. And then your reset itself is very smooth, very quick, very tactile, and you're right back to pulling the trigger.
Yeah.
So a very good trigger for a carry gun, for really any purpose gun, duty, carry, whatever you want to do with it. They did a really good job on their trigger, and they continue to do a good job on their triggers.
Yeah. What's easy to say is that this trigger looks cooler.
It does look cooler.
It's going to be hard to say which trigger's better, though.
It's very hard.
I'll tell you that right now. So, obviously, the Canik, if you haven't seen the primes yet, they have great triggers, too. These two pistols are known for having the best triggers in striker fire history.
Absolutely.
So, well, I know there's some others out there. I'm not saying these are the only two, but
they're
they're like
some of the best.
Yeah. So, obviously, a little bit of take up. You have your trigger safety, which is gold. I like that.
Yep.
You take it up. Very crisp, very short break, and it's a lot lighter.
It is
than the CZ, very noticeably lighter. And then, of course, the reset's super short. I mean, it's super short.
See, I'm gonna have to feel this one before I say which one.
And I gotta feel this one.
So you're gonna think I'm crazy.
I don't know, man.
But I would honestly say, and I shoot CZ P10s all the time. This is one of my go-to. Obviously, it's a carry gun of mine. It's just a go plink gun for me. But I would actually say that the Canik is a better trigger, and there's two reasons why. The first, they give you plenty of surface area with that humongous trigger safety they've got. And it's got some knurling on there, so it really locks your finger onto the trigger where it doesn't slide up and down. And then this thing pretty much breaks at a perfect 90 degree, and the reset is so short. It's definitely shorter than the CZ.
The reset?
The reset's definitely shorter.
Let me feel that
and
one.
the only thing is, the only reason I would go with this one is it's also a little bit lighter. So you're not giving up reset, the brake, anything to have a little bit lighter trigger. So I would have to say the Canik has a better trigger. But it's hard for me because the CZ is just, it's so good. They're so close. What would you say? Be honest with them now.
It's tough. It's tough. I would say, obviously, having the lighter trigger is nice for someone like me or Connor.
Yeah.
So if... but see, when you were talking about the reset almost feels like the same distance for me. I do feel that the reset on the CZ-P10 has a little bit more force back forward. You agree with that?
This is definitely shorter.
Yeah, I think it is a little bit, but not like a
I do
ton.
agree with you, but that's kind of that's the give and take that you have when you lighten up the actual pull.
Right.
You're also gonna lighten up the reset.
Right.
So I do agree with you on that.
So
yeah.
I think, man, this is tough. But
if you're talking about being able to shoot more accurate, faster, the CZ is going to be the gun for you because you're not having to work your finger as much because the trigger is almost doing it for you. Whereas with this one, you may have to pull your finger off a little bit for it to reset. So it is going to be a little bit more of having to think about your trigger pull than with this. Right. The CZ is going to be easier to shoot because it's doing half the work for you by pushing your finger out.
So here's what I'll say. This is my final conclusion. I'm done thinking. I'm done thinking. The Canik Prime, for someone like me or Connor, or someone that consistently and continuously shoots, the lighter trigger is actually going to benefit you.
Yep.
And we might actually be able to use it to its fullest potential.
Yep.
I would argue that most people, the trigger isn't directly their problem. They have to start working on recoil management to be able to get the sights back on target where they want the trigger to pull first before they're worried about how fast they can pull the trigger.
Yeah, that's true.
So I would say if you're someone that's a newer shooter, this one's probably going to be easier and more tactile.
It's better to train
as
on.
far as like literally knowing, because you're putting a little bit more weight into it.
Yep.
This one's pretty light. You can, if you get a little too excited, you might shoot it on accident, right?
That's a good
Maybe
point.
not on accident, but
that's a good point for carry too. For carry purposes, people want a little bit heavier trigger.
Yeah.
And I will say, to your point, is with the CZ, you have a smaller trigger safety. So if you're really talking about the safety of if you're holstering and something grabs onto your trigger, this is really, I don't even know why you would really call it. It's the whole trigger is taken up by that safety. So if anything touches your trigger, it's going to pull in that safety. So for a carry gun, it may be this, I would say, especially what you were saying, for a new shooter or anybody that's not super experienced, this is probably one of the best triggers you can train on because it's so repeatable and it's really the perfect.
Throws your finger out. So that's one less thing to think about while you're shooting, is you're not having to forcefully throw your finger out, say like a 1911 that doesn't have a forced reset, right? It's got a really light trigger, but it doesn't have a forced reset, so you have to think about pushing your finger back forward. Whereas this one, it almost just does it for you.
And no, he doesn't mean the AR triggers where it's a forced reset trigger.
No, not that. Not that.
I knew somebody was going to say that.
That'd be cool,
That
though.
would be cool.
I like
But
it.
yeah, I don't think if you really get down to it and you're going to make the decision based off the trigger, I don't really know that you could. You would have to personally go in a store and try these triggers out, or go to a gun range and shoot them, because they are super close in performance.
They're so great. They're both great.
Yeah. Now, what does set them very apart is the actual reason we're here for the video, and it's the ports.
Yes.
So they're both ported guns. Obviously, one huge difference, if you want to hold that one up, is the size of the port.
Yep.
So CZ has a giant hole, very giant hole. And the Canik, if you want to pull that slide back and show them what those look like, there's actually 3 ports. So you have some on the side and then one in the center. So it's a very different design than what we've seen from really any other gun that's been coming out here recently that's calling a comped or ported gun.
Yeah.
So very different designs. The huge difference is performance, right?
Absolutely.
So what did we find with the Canik?
The Canik was a little bit disappointing, to be honest with you. So if you look, which I'm sure you'll do close-ups, but if you look at the actual hole in the slide, it's way bigger than the hole in the barrel.
Yep.
So when you're looking at it, you're like, oh, it's got a ginormous port up there. And then you pull back the barrel, or the slide, sorry, and you got a tiny little port up front.
Yeah.
And, you know, you do have 2 supporting ones as well that help. I would say the 2 on the side are more for managing the actual recoil into the hand more so than the muzzle flip. So, but I've never really had any issues, I guess because it's helping out left to right and just pushing those gases out. But I've never had an issue with the gun going side to side. I want it to go back down. That's where all the energy's going for me. So, though it does help out from the standard MC9, and I think it
holds its own compared to other guns.
Correct,
like it.
Correct. It was very comparable to the SIG 365 video that we did.
X Macro.
The X Macro. But when we start talking about this CZ, where they put everything on top, and it's a much bigger hole than what we have here, it really affected the performance because it was a little bit surprising when we actually shot them back to back, side to side. That CZ whooped this one's butt.
Whooped it.
I mean, it made it feel like this thing was just flipping up like crazy.
Yep. And yes, the CZ...
Maybe I exaggerated a little bit. This still shoots pretty good, but that performed really well.
So what I would say is, yes, the CZ, we know the comments are coming. Yes, the CZ is a slightly bigger gun, but not really. It's
not really.
Just in thickness and just in slide length. The frames are almost identical in length. So there's not a huge difference in the size of the guns, but the comparison that you would make is not from one comped gun to another performance difference. It would almost be like taking a non-comped CZ P10, comparing it to this one, is the difference between these two.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty drastic recoil difference from a ported gun to another ported gun, way more than what we thought it would be. And it's not that this Canik didn't do a good job. It's just CZ knocked it out of the park because this thing had less recoil than almost any of our comped.
Some of them were
guns.
full-size guns comps that this one outperformed.
Yeah. And part of it, we did talk about part of why we think they went with smaller ports is just due to reliability, because there's definitely, I have more confidence in the CZ when you chamber the round. There's so much more confidence in the reliability of it. Not that we had any issues, but there were a couple times where, just based off of using different mags from other Caniks
and limp
wristing, that this gun did have some issues. So just out of reliability and confidence, this had no hiccups whatsoever. Limp wristing, whatever you want to do, the CZ ran flawless. So, you know, yes, there's a smaller port and everything on this, but it still didn't run as reliable. So you have more of a comp, more of a port, and this one's still running perfectly reliable. So, you know, performance...
Because they have opportunity.
Yeah.
They even cut out a window on the slide. They could have added ports there.
Yep.
Like I said, I would have preferred just sort of like what they did on the CZ. Get rid of the 2 sides, put everything in the middle. Yep. And honestly, they might not even have to change the slide at all, just the barrel. Yeah. Because it looks like the slide has plenty of room for a hole. So.
Yeah. But I mean, when it comes down, when it comes down to it, obviously, when you're talking about ported guns, one of the main factors in which one you would go with is the performance. But when it comes, for me, reliability is obviously number one. So just in that, you've got the price points are almost the same, I would say. By the time you buy a plate for this, you're at the price point of this gun. And yeah, you get some flare with the Canik. You get a little extended magwell, which is not a huge deal. It's not much of one. It is nice to have, but it's not a huge difference. And while we're talking about
mag capacity too, so like these come with 2 17-round mags,
That's
right?
true, yep.
Or is one of them extended?
No, I think they're the same.
They're the same? Whereas this one comes with 2 15-round magazines, but in the box it gives you 2 base plates of +2, so you can actually run this as 17 rounds.
So if you were going to run them at the exact same capacity, this would be easier to conceal than this, because you're going to have that extra, inch.
Of 17 rounds.
Right.
Oh, I got
you. If you're comparing them apples to apples, this one's going to be easier to conceal pretty much overall. But how long have we been carrying this P10C for? Forever.
It's not an issue
so
at all.
It's not an issue.
You just hold a little bit less rounds with a 15-round mag.
I would honestly say, if I was going to recommend one over the other, I would have to go with the CZ P10C ported. I love this gun. I think Canik did a great job. The only thing I would like to see, and we've continued to test this gun, so that's another thing that we're looking into is reliability in, you know, long term.
Yeah.
But this one just didn't have enough. I don't have enough confidence in this gun to recommend it over the CZ.
Okay.
The CZ is reliable. It's a trusted, proven gun for years and years. They've continued to make this, and it's continued to have a great track record. The performance was absolutely incredible compared to other comped guns that we've looked at. And overall, I just think this is a better built, you know, CZ does build a really, really great firearm.
Yep.
So if I'm going to recommend one to you guys, I would actually go with the CZ. Even though there's a lot going for the Canik, I think the CZ is a better gun. What do you think?
I think, and I have to think about, obviously the price point is cheaper on this one, so
Yeah.
that's a huge factor right there. Not by much, but consistently, I would say you're more commonly going to find these for $600 than you are going to be for $550.
I would agree with that, yeah.
So whereas this, with the optic plate, you're going to more consistently see $550. So
Yeah.
just throwing that out there. But they're pretty close in price point.
Yeah.
But if I were to go, we have both of these. If I were to go right now and want to go shoot one, I'm going to take the CZ.
Yeah.
It's much more comfortable in my hands, got a lot less recoil. I just like shooting it. I can actually shoot it better. I can shoot it faster, more accurately. I can take this one farther back than I could ever take that one.
Yeah.
So I think I would go with the CZ as well. Of course, I wish that this had a 17-round mag in this size package, but ultimately you just can't beat the performance on the CZ P10 ported.
And I mean, having an extra 2 rounds is nice, and you can have that if you put the extension on there, but 15 rounds is still plenty of ammunition, especially with, you know, me and Joshua typically will carry another mag on us anyways.
I always carry another mag.
So, you know, it is cool that they're able to get an extra 2 rounds, but it's just hard to beat the confidence that you have with a gun as proven as this gun right here, the CZ. So if it was me, like I said, I would recommend this. This is still a good gun.
Yeah,
the Canik
it's great.
MC9 Prime is still a great product that Canik has come out with. So it really comes down to what you guys want. What's more important to you guys?
This one might be more comfortable inside the waistband because it's just a little bit thinner. And that is one thing that we have noticed is this one's the same thickness as like a Glock 19.
Yep.
So comfort-wise, this one might do better too. So there's value in that as well.
Sure. But at the end of the day, you guys, you really just need to go pick these guns up for yourselves. We can only give you as much information as we can here. This is just our opinions based off of what we found through shooting these guns. So if you guys have any questions about any of the guns, let us know down in the comment sections. If you want to see either of these guns compared to anything else, just let us know, and make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe, and we'll catch you next time.